Thanks for tuning in. Let me catch you up on everything we've already done to the trailer. So we bought a trailer, we stuck a bathroom into it, full running water, sink, the whole works, a composting toilet, and then we put over 1,000 watts of solar on the roof, and then we have more solar panels we can put outside. We put an inverter, we put tables on the inside, and now we're deciding to completely upgrade the water system so that the trailer actually generates its own water through a dehumidifier, but not just any dehumidifier, a pretty industrial one, so that hopefully it's pretty efficient and creates a lot of water. It also moves a ton of air. And we're adding a water tank. So this will probably be a 3-part series because there's a lot that has to go into this. We have to modify the trailer quite a bit. After the 3-part series, we'll be back on another road trip to test it all out. So your support really matters to us. Please like the videos, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. Thanks for watching, but let's get into it. All right, we're back at it, modifying the trailer once again. So I'm doing something a little crazy. We got this Allura Air Sentinel 120. This at max saturation can produce 120 pints a day, which is 15 gallons. My thought is to take this, put it sideways up here. Now we've already cleared this out. Kind of put it right about here into there. And what we're going to do is we've cleared out the bathroom. We're going to drill a vent because it's going to be sucking from the outside and then blowing that way. And instead of creating like a high pressure zone right here, because this will be against the wall, we have a vent that'll blow into the bathroom. It's still clear up here. We're planning to do sort of like a complete revamp of a lot of things. The SOK battery has served us well, but I think that we're going to add maybe a couple more of those, maybe up to 3, depending on the budget. And we might upgrade the wire from the 2 gauge to maybe a 0, 00, and kind of go this way. So have the batteries on this side and then the dehumidifier second from the outside right there. So what the thought process is that the solar system, I've already done tests where it can power this no problem and still have enough left over to charge the batteries. So what my thought is if I can get to one of our properties, set it up, and I got power and water producing every day, that's one less thing that I would need. So you could start looking at any property, especially if it doesn't have the capability of water or the wells are just too expensive. I also want to point out that this is not sponsored by them, and this is completely an unrecommended way to use this. So if anything happens with this, it's my fault, it's not theirs. The other thing too is I want to add more batteries because I'm thinking if I can get this to run a couple of hours, maybe 2 hours by itself without the solar being on in those dewy, misty parts of the morning, that's going to be really sweet and it's going to generate a lot of water. I'm not going to just drink the water that's coming out of this. It's going to be going through a whole filter system. So keep that in mind. But what we're going to do now is we've marked out everything from the inside of the bathroom. So this is the vent we found. That there's a lot cheaper ones, but I didn't like the way that they looked. Like, to me, this looks nice and just maybe a little more industrial, just a little bit more substance to it than something that you would just screw in from your house. Also, when I was purchasing this, it wasn't so brown. Even though the color was brown, it kind of had more of a bronzy look to it, so I'm still kind of debating whether I'm going to paint that or not. This is where we lined up to drill a hole. We did space it up a 1/2 inch after walking back and forth to figure it out, because on this side of the trailer, if it's all the way at the bottom, it's going to run into the board down there. So we had to space it up about a 1/2 inch because there's a 1/2 inch surround on the vent that we have a leeway. I'll show you right now. So this is what I'm referring to. The diameter of this is smaller than the diameter of that. And not to mention, as soon as we get it in there, in the top, we'll probably gain about a 1/4 inch right here on the wall with play. No real easy way to mount this for my specific application, but as soon as it's on the other side, I'll figure it out. Construction adhesive on the back of this or whatnot. So the goal today is just to get that in there. And we've taken out the toilet, taken out the mounting brackets for the toilet. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole into each corner and then probably just run my little saber saw through everything. And then I might have to run my oscillating saw on the bottom because it's going to be a really tight fit. And then we'll drop it in and see how it goes. All right, so here I am just taking everything out, just making as much room as possible. And now I'm putting in the vent and I'm measuring around just to center it in that wall. All right, so now we're on the cutting. I'm going to drill a hole into each corner, and then I'm going to use my little saw to connect. I'm going to tape everything up so that nothing gets scratched up or dinged up or anything like that. And so yeah, this is pretty straightforward and easy. Yep, we definitely get the whole thing with the reciprocating saw. So I'm using the oscillating tool to cut out that beam. Now I'm test fitting the vent in there. So I want it to fit tight, but it still needs to fit. Have my son holding it from this side as I'm looking at it from the other side to see if there's anything else I need to trim. All right, so now we're on to the hard part, cutting a hole in the trailer itself. There's two beams right here. So there's the beam that's holding up the shelf, but then there's another metal beam behind this wall. So that's why the hole had to go right here. Not to mention the sink being, so if I moved it down, it would be blowing into the back of the sink. Definitely threaded the needle with this whole thing. I think the dehumidifier has about 1/4 inch of clearance everywhere, so this was pretty tight, but it does work. So on this, I'm using the oscillating tool just to cut out the whole square. All right, so now I'm going to test fit the door from the inside. It's not going to fully fit. I'm just trying to make sure most of the dimensions are good, just like that, before I mark and start drilling through the outside, because that seems a little bit more intimidating. So I'm just making sure everything is perfect before I start doing that. All right, so now I'm going to drill some pilot holes in the corners, so that way from the outside I know exactly where the hole is from the inside. And now I'm going to use tape to mark out the perimeter of these holes. Got to unscrew this VIN plate. I think it's riveted on. I do put that on underneath the door, double checking everything. All right, here we go. We're cutting. Since this is just aluminum skin, it does cut fairly easy. There you have it. It is ready. Still needs some trimming up, but we'll get it in there and then we'll have to trim it up again just to make it square with the trailer. All right, wanted to bring you guys in, show you the progress. There's the hole in the side of the trailer. There's the hole going into the bathroom where the vent's gonna go. So just in case I haven't made it too clear, the intake for the dehumidifier is gonna be sucking in here from the outside and then blowing into the bathroom. Otherwise, if this wall was still here, I kind of have a feeling it would have created like a pressure zone, and the dehumidifier wouldn't have been able to work as efficiently. There's the inside of the door, so we have this much room as basically a fudge factor to cover up anything, because you could see right there and right there it's a little bit bent, but I'm not too concerned about it because there's that much that's going to cover it. And I put masking tape on there so the saw, when the saw was coming through, wouldn't cut it up. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that we're going to lose this side light right here. There's another one up top and more that way, but the next step is I'm going to cut wood to fit into here. And basically, if I try to screw in the door with let's just say I use wood screws that go from here and then into this, it's going to pull and bend the heck out of that thing. So I cut some wood. Now, you can't just go to the hardware store and expect for it to be the right dimensions that they're saying on the outside of the. So take a tape measure or go to the hardware department and get a tape measure to make sure that the dimensions on the wood are the actual dimensions, because they're usually not. Like a 2x4 is not actually a 2x4. It's like a 1.5 by a 3 3/4 sometimes, depending on manufacturer. So just saying, double check. So basically, imagine two pieces of wood in here, similar to this, right? So I'm going to glue these two pieces together with wood glue and then glue it to here. And now imagine, so it's going to bridge that gap and it's going to make it so the door is going to feel more solid, and I'll get the longest screws I can going through this, through that, into here. The ones coming into here, unfortunately, won't be able to be as long. I was thinking about possibly putting another piece of wood here, but probably not. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put these in. I'm going to have to take out this one screw right here, at least back it out because it is sticking through right there. So just back it out, put these in, clamp it, and then put that screw back in to where it is. And basically, so I'm going to have pieces of wood right here, 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 and here. And then I'm going to just clamp everything together. So you can see how this didn't fare too well from the oscillator. So I'm going to put glue into there, wood glue, and just clamp this down and just, hope for the best. And then this screw right here that holds on this panel, I'm pretty sure if I unscrew that, it's going to give me a little bit more wiggle room to get these in there. So basically, I'm trying to make sure that all of this is behind the metal, and that's where that extra little bit of wiggle room I'm hoping to get is. And then I'm trying to overlap everything, so the pieces on the side are a little bit longer. They're going to come up to about here on the inside, and then these ones are just in the middle. They're going to be just in the middle right there. Because of the flange on the outside, I want to make sure that whatever screw I have coming in from the outside has plenty of room to bite. But yeah, I guess it's just time to glue everything and clamp it in. All right, so this is the fun part where all that wood that I cut, we're now putting it in there. So the two pieces of wood are glued together, and then they're glued to that inner wall from the inside. So there's two different glue joints. I'm going to use probably 8 different clamps with this. So those wood clamps are definitely coming in handy again. But just take your time with this. The finished product you'll definitely be happy with by adding this wood. The door won't seem so flimsy. I do have to go back and forth to trim up the wood because I want it as tight as possible in here. So you see that's tight as possible, and then I have to pry them back out. So I'm going to use a ton of glue. I'd rather have the glue squishing out, and then I'll clean it up. All right, we're just putting in the last piece. Fits good, and there we go. Now I'm just going to tidy everything up. Okay, so here we are. So keep in mind, nobody's going to see this part of it once the door is actually in. So the reason the wood is below the outside skin of the trailer is because I'm not confident in the way that the door fits just yet. I want to make sure it looks square to the bottom of the trailer, and all I have to do is sand this part down to make it flush anywhere I need it to make it flush. Now on the sides, there wasn't a lot of room there, so that has to be what it is, but on the top, also keep in mind that when I put in the trailer, I'm going to be filling this with a ton of construction adhesive, silicone. So the gap will be filled, nobody will be the wiser, and it'll look even better from the outside. But as soon as I pull the trailer out and can stand back with the door there and do a couple measurements between the bottom of the door frame and the bottom of the trailer, that'll be the final installation of it. So over here, I'm going to cut the another 2x3 going across, pretty much what you would do when you're putting a window in the wall of a house, basically building a header, distributing the load down around where the vent's at. There is this beam, and then there's a beam right here that is carrying the load of the shelf, but on the end right here, I want to make sure that this is supported not just by the wall or what's above it. So just peace of mind. So basically gonna cut another piece and then have pieces going down like this, depending. So still working on that part. Okay, it's been a few weeks. I've pushed the trailer outside. I've left everything clamped up for those 2 weeks. Probably just a day would have been plenty, but 2 weeks. So basically what I'm going to do now is take all the clamps off, take the masking tape off, and then see what I need to trim on the aluminum outer shell so the door fits in good. And then once I got it fitting in good, I'm I'm going to measure from the bottom because that's going to be the sight line that you're going to notice that door's crooked. The other sight line is going to be this. So hopefully I can square it up between this and the bottom. If I can't, I'm just going to have to find the best compromise between the two so it doesn't look horrible. So that's what I'm going to do now. Then I'll probably drill all the holes really small, and then because it's basically just some self-tappers I have. So these are the self-tappers I have. They're all stainless, pretty nice head on them. I'm gonna eventually replace everything on the outside. I don't know if I'll get to it this trip or not, but I believe these are just galvanized. And I had one of them on our trip just fall out, so I put one in already just to see how it would look, and I like to look a little bit better. These are sort of like a Torx, but not a Torx. Like you can use an Allen key. They're kind of like a cheap screw. And what I want to do is, so these are a bigger diameter than these, the shank is. So I think I want to run like a little construction adhesive and then run it in so that it has a bit of a gasket, because we ran into a lot of weather on the last trip. So I want to nail all these down. So I'm going to be using these. I bought a bunch of them off of Amazon. So pretty excited to change that out with stainless. So I'm going to get on that now. Right, just taking everything off. I'm trimming the sheet aluminum here with some aviation snips. You can use some tin snips, pretty much whatever you have. It's fairly soft metal to trim, so it's not too horrible. I think if you were careful with an angle grinder and only cut as the metal's being pushed to the inside instead of getting pulled towards you towards the outside, you probably could have used a grinder on it. But here I am just measuring it up and then realizing that it can't be square with that front little splash plate compared to the bottom of the trailer. So just going to have to kind of split the difference and make sure the door fits well. But this is a lot of little finicky things, trying to see what's hitting, why won't the door rotate slightly, and then you just keep cutting and trimming, cutting and trimming. All right, so here I'm just countersinking all the holes. I'm going to deburr them all, just make sure everything is good. I really want to use these screws. I like the way they look, and I don't really mind the countersunk look on the door. I think it looks fine. All right, now just cleaning everything up with some alcohol. That way the construction adhesive sticks as good as it can. Okay, I thought I'd bring you in here before I put this up there. A few challenging problems, of course. So I was thinking about using an angle grinder. The problem is, if you catch it on this side, you're going to rip it out, and you could possibly tweak the whole thing. So I wanted to come at it more cautiously. Now, obviously, this doesn't look as nice as I would like it to look at all, especially like up here. But like I was saying before, like this part right there that is all nasty, it's going to be hidden behind here. Like you're just not going to see it. So it's not ideal. I would love for it to be just like a perfect square, but it's just not going to be. So I've cleaned everything with alcohol, cleaned behind here, so that the construction adhesive would stick better. I'm personally liking the construction adhesive better on this project than I'm liking anything else. It seems to hold better, seems to be more resilient, and it doesn't seem to move or migrate in my experience. So the other problem I had was the screws I wanted to use, these little beauties. I think they're stainless steel. Maybe it's sort of like a button head, self-tapping number 12. It wasn't going to fit into these. Didn't even think about that part. You can see it right there. That head's not fitting in there. So I tried turning down the outside. I don't have a lathe here at work, so I was trying to think, what else do I have? And I have a countersink. So I countersunk all the holes, and it gave it just enough of a gap to where that goes in now, where it didn't before. So right there, nothing. Right there, yes. And then I deburred the outside because it kind of left a sharp edge. So I did that all the way around. So what I'm going to do now is blow off the inside, clean as much as I can. I'm probably going to construction adhesive most of this up right here, and then a ton on this side, a ton on the outside, and then just worry about wiping it up. And then the bottom here, this is going to go through this, and then it's going to go through this. There's a piece of angle iron in there. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's right there. So the bottom's going to be really locked in if I can get these things to go in and bite. But yeah, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to clean out the rest of the inside of this, probably blow it out, and then construction adhesive the heck out of this thing. All right, now I'm really laying on all of that construction adhesive. I'm really gobbing it in there. I'd rather wipe off the excess later, so I'm really just caking it on before I put in the door here. All right, just going to smoosh the door in there. Then I'm just doing my final measurements, and now I'm running in some screws. All right, so here's the worst part of this construction adhesive. It takes forever to clean up. You just got to keep going back and forth, wiping and wiping. Eventually, you do get a pretty good finish with it, but it does take a while. Right, now I'm just going to clean up the inside, clean up any drips, smooth everything out so that it looks nice and will dry nice. Okay, she's pretty well in. So these countersunk spots don't look too terrible. I did get to that point where this is not necessarily parallel to the bottom of this. It's not 90, so I had to just do what I could do. Because I didn't want this door to be so far off that even if the trailer was level, it would just keep swinging. So the bottom looks more parallel than that does. I don't know if you can see it on the camera that well. Also, the door that I got, it's not also perfect. You can see that there's a tight gap right here, and then it goes to a bigger gap. See, my finger can fit in there, and it can't fit in there. That might be something I can straighten out, maybe with open the door with a floor jack and start jacking it up. I might try that. I've already had to fix the door right here. These little ramps kind of push it so the door's tight and leveled up, but there was no screw in there. There was a hole, but there was no screw. So I don't know where that went. So I just put some self-tapping screws in there, and now it goes in fine. But right here's what I mean. If I jack that up, it'd probably bend the hinge a little bit, but you see how these impact and then it ramps up. So not too bad. Even though nothing is level right now, it's staying open, so there must be enough friction on the hinge to keep it open. I cleaned the inside a little bit. So basically on the outside, the best thing that I've used was alcohol, and then these like grouting rubber or Teflon pieces to just scrape it out. I do plan on coming back in and putting a nice little seam around it, but I wanted to get it all cleaned up for now, let it set up, and then do something on the outside. Maybe more of that, maybe less of that. Hard to say, but these are invaluable. And the construction adhesive I use is this Gorilla Ultimate Heavy Duty. I've just had decent luck with this. I glued on the solar panels with this, and I bolted them on too, but that has always worked very well for me. Pretty happy about this. Another little milestone done. If you want the door to fit tighter, you can also bend this in a little bit so that it impacts more, but even that has a little bit of play to it. I might modify it a little bit to get it to work a little bit better, but have it so you have to press the door in to get it to lock, and I don't know, it's pretty tight, but I'll run a hose over it to make sure it's perfect. But okay, now that we got the door pretty well finished, it's time to tackle the inside. So I'm gonna have to remove all of our wiring all the way to the bus blocks, and then start to frame out the opening. so that then we can start to build the platform to hold the water tank. I went around quite a few times trying to figure out how to get the water tank and all the batteries and then the pump and all of that. Batteries are going to be down here. The water tank's going to be above them, and I'm going to have to tie it in to these braces and build the whole thing. So those wires taken out because some of the wood's going to go right there. Got to retrim this piece right here. Still a little bit too long, and then we'll get everything taken care of. Right, so here, just undoing all that wiring. Wanted to redo it anyways. Add a thicker gauge wire, so I'm pretty excited about all this. It's going to look better, should perform better. Right, so right here I'm going to get started on my little makeshift header. I'm going to trim down that beam coming down, and then I'm going to start measuring out and cutting everything to fit this just right and perfect. There's kind of a lot that went into this. I just overbuilt it because I don't want to come into the trailer and just find a bunch of shelves collapsed. So I kind of just overbuild everything because realistically it's not going to actually weigh that much more in the trailer. Right, so right there I measured it out. I'm going to try to slide it in. See, I bumped the camera, slide it in an angle. I'm able to kind of just manhandle it in there, beat it in there, and it fits. And now that shelf has another point to bear all the loads of it, so I'm pretty excited about that, especially because it's relatively in the center. Right, so now we're just onto the water tank support. I'm seeing if that beam can fit there. I do have to kind of shoehorn it in behind these two beams. There's barely enough room for it to fit, but if I come in at an angle, it does end up fitting. So the cuts in this area were pretty complicated because the door is offset from where the vent is at into the bathroom. So trying to make these two cuts just line up perfectly, because otherwise it wouldn't look right. It'd be hidden underneath the water tank, but it doesn't matter. It still wouldn't look right. All right, everything's now starting to come together. So the water tank, if I really fill it up all the way, it should weigh about 175 pounds. So I sit on this, and I'm probably 100 pounds heavier than that. So it's plenty sturdy enough to support me, so it should be fine supporting the water tank. Ooh, that was a lot of work and cutting and measuring and all kinds of stuff. So I guess I'll start over here. I cut this guy all the way down so that it supports the weight of this shelf, but also it's carrying the load of this, that shelf, and that shelf, right? So now let's come down here, and here's basically the shelf, right? And then you got another 2x3 carrying the load right there, one right here carrying the load. So these are screwed to this is screwed to that. This is all glued, screwed, the whole works. So basically the rolling shelf comes to here, and then from here to here is where the water tank is going to sit. The vent, I had these little brackets. They came with a something from IKEA or something like that, and I didn't use them. So it's basically just a hole in a hole. I have other brackets that I could show you how to do this, but basically just a wood screw and then a self-tapping screw to go in, and then this thing is like rock solid, so not worried about that. Did basically the same thing on the back. So the reason the whole thing is at an angle is because the dehumidifier is going to be sucking in here and then blowing out there, and I couldn't have it direct, you know, straight from there to there, because right here is the sink and the cabinet. So to get around all that, had to go at an angle. I mean, it should be able to hold all this. Everything looks pretty good. I think that's carrying the load down. So that cross beam is screwed into the wall, and then it's carrying the load down. Same over there. This is basically how you would do a window. But this is my little header, so it's distributing the weight out, and then I have these right there going all the way down, distributing the load out. Like, I guess if you were doing a window, you'd probably cut it a little bit closer. This is not carrying that much load, maybe a couple 100 pounds at most, but it's distributed over this and over this beam, over those beams. So it's kind of nice because now that this beam in the middle also has support right there going all the way down. I got more of these brackets. As you can see, everything is really well glued. So yeah, so basically all you have to do, that cut was probably the hardest. You know, I probably cut it like 7 or 8 times, just slowly sneaking up on it, changing the angle, sneaking up on it. You can put a straight edge on one side, and then, so if you just keep marking it and you'll sneak up on it, you'll get it. It's not that big of a deal. These ones were even easier on top because you just lay the wood down on top, measure out to make sure it looks relatively even, and then just get a Sharpie from underneath and then just swipe it on both sides, and then you'll have that angle, and this side should be a 90 for me anyways. So putting the water tank inside, because there's, you know, I got the sink in here. Like, realistically, I could have put it underneath. That was going to have its own challenges, and we go on dirt roads a lot, and it could be freezing where we're at. So I thought it'd be better just to have the tank on the inside where it's slightly more insulated. The other reason we're raising it up is because right about, I would say, here are where the 4 batteries are going to go. And then right here is where the pump's going to go. And then I think right there is where the filter system's going to go. Yeah, so all of that, that's why that had to be like this. And I was having a lot of trouble because trying to find the right size tank, because they got tanks of all sizes and it's pretty complicated to find the right one. So I had to keep measuring, and then luckily it could go up into there slightly. So I have basically about 1/4 of an inch before that shelf starts pushing into it, but it shouldn't. So we'll see. Probably gonna put a board going across here like that. That'll block in the water tank. So the shelf will keep it down on top, and then probably this to block it in. Might put some scrap pieces on the side here just to take up the gap on the side so it can't slide around. But the majority of this is completely done at this point. I mean, I was able to sit on this, and I'm pretty close to 275-ish, and it's holding me, so it should be able to hold that water tank. But again, I overbuilt it, you know, it'd probably be fine with these screws just going into there, but I have the load being carried down to this, so even if those start to get a little sloppy, it goes straight down to this, straight down into the board on both sides, on that corner, on every corner. So that should be good, and like I said, everything is screwed and glued. All right, let's take you to the inside now, and I'll show you the vent. All right, so here's a look inside the bathroom with the vent. I'm pretty excited about that vent. When we first got it, it did not look like anything like the description showed. It was like this cool kind of bronzy kind of color. Instead, it was like Crayola brown. So I found some spray paint and painted it, cleaned it up, scratched it up, and I really like this color, whatever it is. Usually it's right there. Ottoman brown. But it has like a kind of a texture to it. The other thing too is originally how it came, not only was it the crayon brown, but it was sort of a glossy crayon brown. So this just blends in better. It still sticks out, but it blends in better. Because now if I turn off the lights, see, to me this just kind of blends in, and almost like I knew what I was doing by leaving that space there. But so, yeah, so that's what this looks like from this side now. We are going to change out this faucet for reasons we're going to show you in a little bit, but the little sump pump that came with it was a piece of junk. It worked, but it's rusting, so I'm going to film all that for you. Since we're upgrading to a different water system, we're just going to use a house faucet or a bathroom faucet. We found one that we really like that'll blend in with everything better. You know, it's a Moen or a Delta or something like that, so it's not just stupid plastic. So yeah, that's getting upgraded, or no, that's getting upgraded. Let me show you, coming in from the other side, wanted to show you guys right
there, these little, I think they're stainless brackets. And these came in like a big pack of a bunch of different sizes, different lengths from Amazon, and I'll have that link down in there, but that's carrying the load across. Not only is it screwed, glued, the whole works, but it's also got those stainless brackets. So I thought I would show you those. Okay, but I think that's it for now. Waiting for the last battery to come in. So we have 3 right now, waiting for the 4th one to come in. I got to make some hold down clamps for the bottom of the dehumidifier. That's going to be fun. I think I'm going to have to weld something up because I can't find anything that's remotely close to what I would need. But yeah, I think we're getting really close. Stay tuned.
Thanks for watching. In the upcoming episodes, we install the water tank, we install a pump, we install a new faucet, 4 of the SOK batteries, so that we'll have over 800 amp hours of battery power. And then we finally install the dehumidifier. I have to make my own mounts. This is a very costly project, so we really appreciate if you guys would subscribe to the channel, like the videos, leave comments down below. We really appreciate any support you guys give us. Thanks.
What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.